Canada's auto industry is the latest target of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs after Trump announced a 25% tax on all vehicle imports yesterday. Brian Kingston is the president and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, which works with some major brands, including Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. Brian, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. So Trump signed this executive order. There was some confusion initially with the timeline, what it really meant. So I want to get your take on what he said yesterday and also how the industry is feeling today.
Sure. Well, our understanding is that starting next week, tariffs will go in force of 25% on vehicles built outside of the United States. That said, if a vehicle has U.S. parts and components in it, then the tariff will only apply to the non-American components in that vehicle. So for Canada, we have a highly integrated automotive industry with the U.S. There is a lot of U.S. content, so the tariff might not be as high as stated, but still working through the details as the executive order was not overly clear in how this will be applied.
So there's still some of that uncertainty there. I can't imagine this is easy for folks who work in these industries, and we have communities here in Canada that have big workforce in the auto sector here. What kind of impact could this have on the auto industry?
Well, it's deeply concerning. Auto manufacturers have been in Canada for over 120 years. We've got nearly 130,000 Canadians directly employed in auto manufacturing. This is a big, important industry for many communities across this country. And so this has created a great deal of uncertainty. We don't know how these tariffs will ultimately be applied, if these are permanent measures taken by the U.S., if we still have a free trade agreement that we can rely on. I mean, remember, just 4 years ago, we negotiated the USMCA, which created this integrated supply chain across North America. So deep uncertainty at the moment. However, I do remain optimistic. The trade relationship with the U.S. in auto overwhelmingly benefits the U.S. So I do think there's a path forward here, but it's going to be a rough road.
And what does it mean for all Canadians in general, when it comes to purchasing vehicles and prices of vehicles here in Canada?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the health of the Canadian economy depends on the health of our manufacturing sector. Automotive contributes $18 billion to our gross domestic product every year, and vehicles are our second largest export. So if this industry faces challenges, that has an impact on the broader economy. But for Canadians looking to buy vehicles, when countries pursue protectionist policies, there are a few impacts. First of all, the cost of inputs for manufacturers go up, prices for consumers go up, and demand for vehicles goes down. So that's what we are facing if the U.S. pursues this policy. The price of vehicles manufactured in North America could go up by thousands of dollars because these costs cannot be absorbed. There are not enough margins in this business to absorb these costs. They will be passed to the consumer. So this is bad news for Americans, Canadians, and Mexicans who are in the market for a new vehicle.
Donald Trump has been talking about ramping up the auto industry in the U.S. So that it's less reliant on Canada. So I'm wondering what this means in the long term, and could it lead to some of those big companies that you work with, your GMs, the Stellantis, Fords, could it lead to those organizations leaving the country altogether?
No, it's simply not feasible what the U.S. is trying to pursue here. The Americans build about 10 million vehicles a year. They consume 16 million. So there is a gap there, and those other vehicles are imported into the U.S. market. The cost of creating a U.S.-only auto supply chain from parts right through to finished vehicles, we're talking tens of billions of dollars and years to construct new facilities. That's not realistic. And given how erratic U.S. policy has been, companies are going to be very hesitant to make long-term investments in the U.S. because the rules of the game appear to change on an almost daily basis. The other factor here is that the U.S. depends on exports. And what could happen here is a global trade war might be triggered, which will reduce the U.S. access to other markets around the world, further damaging the U.S. economy. So protectionism doesn't work. We know that. Lots of historical examples. And as a result, I don't think that ultimately this will be pursued to the fullest extent.
All right, Brian Kingston, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it. That is Brian Kingston, the president and CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association.